How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Late Night with the Devil. This just came out March 22nd, 2024. It was directed and written by Colin and Cairnes and stars David Dastmalchain, as well as Lauren Gordon and Ian Bliss. This movie was actually also put out by IFC Midnight and Shudder, and yeah, I really am liking what Shudder's doing. Not only are they a horror-based streaming service that also puts out a lot of their stuff on physical media, but they put out a few in the actual theaters lately. I was able to see Christmas Bloody Christmas in the theaters, a really fun Terminator-styled Santa Claus movie, and now we have this that, boy, the horror community was really bubbling up about it, and I was really glad I was able to see it in the theaters, because this is a fun movie, you know? Nowadays, a lot of horror fans are really excited for interesting concepts and fun, crazy, out there ideas, and the idea that you would take a late-night talk show, cross it with The Exorcist, I mean, that's really fun, and we also use found footage in a new and interesting way, you know? As much as we made with found footage, we don't actually get too many broadcast-style footage movies, and they really take an effort for it to feel like an actual late-night show. You know, they have, obviously, the lead actor, David Dastmalchain, does a really good job in this movie. He's charismatic, and the way he moves and talks and jokes, there's tiny little mannerisms that I definitely recognized from real late-night talk show host, and you can tell he probably watched a ton of episodes to get all this down right. But you get, you know, him, the sidekick character, the whole band is there, you get a fun producer guy, and all the guests are interesting. You know, you don't jump into the possessed girl right away. You have a few opening acts first, and that's what they're building up to. But I was legitimately interested in all the guests that he had going on before this. And yeah, no, it kept me engaged, and it felt like real late-night TV. And actually, after I left the theater, I would get in conversations about, you know, just nostalgic memories for late night, which is definitely something that has been on its way out for a while now, but to talk about these shows and to stay up late and to get to see the old familiar host and, you know, who's he gonna bring on tonight and all the fun different guests, it's just, yeah, it really strikes that one note really right of this is what late night was, why it was cool, and now we're crossing that with The Exorcist and watching this Halloween special go nuts. I will say, yeah, it does go nuts. And that is one of those things, you know, with found footage, like, I found a lot of this movie, you know, like I said, it really does feel like a late night show. It is pretty realistic, except for there are some scenes where it really does go pretty far and swing for the fences and become this kind of crazy horror movie. And I really realized they're doing found footage to convey the late night feel and to have that immersion, you know, that's why they're doing it. It's not so much to convince you this is real, because when you get to the end, there are definitely moments that I'd be surprised if anyone believed was real, but they're fun, and it's really, again, not to convince you it's real, it's just the proper storytelling motif for a late night story, and they're more focused on getting the story they want out, and that means they're not going to worry about realism. We're going to swing for the fences, and the ending of this movie is going to go absolutely nuts, and if you're the kind of horror fan that wants to see some crazy stuff, that's good. So, good, charismatic lead, a fun concept, nostalgia for late-night TV, and insane horror shenanigans. This does really well. I can see why everyone's talking about it. I will definitely pick it up when it comes out on DVD. And I hope that Shudder, whenever they see they got another gem, I hope that they release it into the theaters, because I liked seeing this on the big screen. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about the plot. I'm not going to do any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the movie's about. I know that with new movies, people are a little sensitive to spoilers, so if you want to pause here and then come back after you watch the movie, that's fine, but I will keep them to a minimal. I won't talk about the ending, but I will talk about broad concepts. So no major spoilers, but let's talk a little bit more specifically. The movie opens up with a mockumentary section. Like I said, this is all found footage, so you get the mockumentary section, you get the newly discovered master of the tape, and you will get behind the scenes stuff. So it all has some real source, but the mockumentary opening, it talks about who this guy was. He was a late night show host. He was always second to Carson, and he always wanted to be number one but could never quite get there. And you get to find out things about him, like him being involved in a society of Hollywood elites, him having a wife that would sadly pass away, and how he was able to keep the show going despite his depression. And then also just, the show not ever reaching the ratings that they wanted it to, and kind of letting that seep into the show and saying, okay, we'll be a little more controversial, we'll be a little rougher, some of the guests are going to storm off the show. I like the history, and why this could be seen as exposition, it never feels clunky. They're making a good mockumentary that is interesting, and when you get into the show, when you watch the episode, it really does lead to the feeling that the show has history behind it. It's not just a generic late night TV show, it's one that's well thought out and has a past. And of course, certain stuff from this will come up later, which is actually a thing I really do like with the movie, is it does have more of a plot than you think. Again, it's not just, hey, here's a fun, wacky late night show episode. They are going to talk about what drives this guy, and certain elements from his past. You will get how he, dealt with losing his wife and stuff. So it is more of a plot, and there are going to be more layers that will be explored later. But anyway, we do get the host, and he comes out, and he's making his jokes, and, he'll make jokes about people that no one's thought of in forever, because this is supposed to take place in the 70s. But, he has his opening monologue, he has his assistant there that he's going to bounce off of really well. The band's there, and you get teasers for the upcoming guest. It all feels really real and really fun. And again, his charisma pulls you in. But you'll get some of his first two guests, and you get a psychic. And he's doing that thing where he's leading people on. Oh, I'm getting a name. It begins with maybe a P. And you think he's just phony, but then he actually starts to behave a little creepily. And you're like, okay, maybe there's more to this guy. But they have this guy, and they cross him with this guy who was a former magician, and now he's going around exposing people. And I really do like this character, and that really surprised me, because the jerk in the horror movie that's always like, oh, this isn't real, so many times he's way too played up. But this guy, he knows when to stop. He knows, like, it would be disrespectful if I were to jut in here, so he's not super rude, but the way he goes about it analytically, and like someone did something, and he'll be like asking them questions later. And the way that he was a former magician means he really does know all this stuff, and he still will wow you with a magic trick. He's on screen for a long time, but honestly, his presence is welcome. It's a nice counterbalance to whenever the show goes nuts, he can always level it off a little bit. So yeah, a character that really surprisingly works. But you get the guest, and you get them talking, and we do get some behind-the-scenes stuff. And the behind-the-scenes stuff, it's good to see behind the curtain, to see when characters are putting on a face for the camera, and then maybe when the camera's off, they're not so sure, and to get to see the producer guy run in and start, getting people amped up. The FCC hates this, they're having an emergency meeting. That's great. I really did like seeing behind the curtain and, getting people go, was that real? Was this part of the show? It's an interesting peek. I will say, again, not necessarily super believable as found footage. I could believe one behind the scenes camera, but the way that they have like 3 or 4 going, I honestly kind of wonder if this was shot as like breaking the formula and it was just supposed to be regular footage, and then they're like, nah, turn it black and white, make it behind the scenes stuff because we don't want to break the immersion. Whatever. The behind the scenes is an interesting angle, a way to, because if they had just skipped the commercials, then you would have, noticed the time loss, and it keeps you in the moment and gives you a different perspective. It's really cool. But we will get the possessed girl. Her name is actually Lily, and for just a second, I'm like, wait, this is Shudder. Shudder has VHS now. This is a found footage movie that takes place well before. No, it is not a prequel to Amateur Night from VHS 1. It had me going for a second, but completely different Lily. But anyway, she's a good character as well. The way she talks about how it's her most of the time, but Mr. Wriggles sometimes wriggles into her where you don't know if she's gonna snap or turn, and you get like a video that they've made about her to introduce her and her lore. It's not just a random possessed girl, she has lore, and the way they build up to her because she's the big act, the way they tease and say, okay, she's gonna be on in a bit, and they hold her off, for till over the halfway mark, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, it's a good character. You can definitely see the influence from The Exorcist on her, but it is just one of those things where it's like, okay, now she's here, now it's built up. And again, the ending does go absolutely nuts, and I have to believe that some of this was on the newly discovered master tape and didn't actually make it to broadcast, because things go absolutely crazy, and that's going to be the thing is, if you prefer more realism with your found footage, you may not appreciate this, but if you want to see horror movies being fun and horror movies going nuts, there's a lot to like here. So I would kind of see some people debating some ways how it goes at the end, but it also does tie it into, the themes of the movie and really nailed those down. So overall, Late Night with the Devil, a really, really fun watch. I definitely enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it to, anyone that's into horror. I hope Shudder puts out more in the theater, and I really did like this. Also, yeah, Shudder bringing VHS back, making things like Deadstream, and they have one cut of the dead. But good for Shudder for making, found footage horror kind of be the cool thing again. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Shudder movies playlist. If you want to see more, you can click there and see more. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.